February 26, 1945, Elsdorf, Germany, 3rd Armoured Division, Major General Maurice Rose. The town sits under a low winter sky. Smoke hangs in alleys, roof tiles clatter in loose wind. Sherman crews edge forward behind rubble mounds and brick dust. They have learned the rhythm of the Panther already. A thin whistle, a flat crack, a punched hole where a wall used to be. Men count heartbeats and corners. They know where the German gunner will wait and how the long barrel will rake the street before they can even swing a turret. The lesson has been cruel and steady since Normandy. For months the call has been simple and blunt. Heavier armour, heavier fire. The workhorse has carried the fight, but the workhorse is tired. Crews whisper to each other about the thick, sloped plate on the German cat. 80 millimeters on the glacis raked back at 55 degrees. A turret face that shrugs blunt hits and turns glancing strikes into arcing sparks. A long 75 that reaches out with clean, angry speed. The Panther has become a shape in the mind before it appears in the sights, a threat that shapes the street plan and the day. Now a different shape rolls in from the west. The hull sits low and wide. The turret is round and heavy. The gun is long. The cap on the muzzle looks like a promise. Men step back and watch the new tank clank past them and feel the weight through the cobbles. A name moves with it, Pershing. A number moves with it, 90 millimeters. A quiet calculation follows in every head. If the front is a slope and the sides are thinner, where do you place the first round? If the gun can drive a steel core through tilted plate, what does that do to the street and the war? Crews have heard fragments from proving grounds and depots. The 90mm M3 pushes a shot hard and straight. The muzzle velocity climbs toward 850 meters per second, with armor-piercing capped high explosive, higher with a fast core when it is issued. The recoil is deep but smooth. The tube settles back on line as if a hand steadies it. Against flat plate at medium range, the figures look clean and comforting on paper. But the front of a Panther is not flat plate. It is a lesson in geometry and fear. The glacis is a mirror that throws shots up and away. The mantlet hides a trap that sends broken steel down into the roof if the angle is unlucky. The sides are thinner 40 to 50 millimeters, but the German crew knows how to guard them with a hull yaw and a street line. So the question is not a chart. The question is a corner. The question is a smoke cloud that drifts just enough to reveal a lower hull seam or the right cheek of a turret as it hunts. The question is whether the American gun can make a Panther blink first. The men who will answer it sit on steel seats and taste cordite in the back of their throats. Loader, gunner, driver, bow, commander. They speak in clipped words without slang. Range, deflection, on, up, fire. They have trained with diagrams of German armor zones chalked on classroom boards. They have memorized weak arcs and best shots. Now the board is a street with laundry lines and shattered carts. A Pershing halts behind a broken wall. The commander lifts his head once and then drops back into the cupola. The gunner rides the periscope through the haze. He knows the Panther silhouette, a flat wedge of bow, the high collar of the mantlet, the barrel that seems to point at everything at once. He will not try the upper glacis at this angle unless he must. He will wait for a sliver of turret side. He will wait for the lower front that shows when the German drives over a lip. He grips the elevating handwheel with steady pressure and breathes out. The loader palms the heavy round and feels the weight of a different war. He has driven Shermans, and he has watched rounds shatter and skate. Now, the cartridge he holds has a blunt confidence to it. Brass shines at the rim. Steel glints at the cap. He slams it home and locks the breech. The recoil guard seems closer than before. He braces his legs and sets his shoulder. Across the square, the Panther noses out from behind a gutted tramcar. The driver is cautious. The commander is disciplined. They will show only what they must. The bow comes slow. The barrel swings like a pendulum. The German gunner is hunting for a corner of olive drab and a motion that looks like a turret traverse. He knows the new American tank has arrived. He knows the report of a 90mm is lower and heavier than the 75 he is used to hearing. He does not yet know what that report will do to his front plate at this range. The Pershing commander gives a short order. The gunner settles the sight on a seam that opens and closes as the Panther moves. The loader is already moving. The sight picture lifts and drops back into place. Smoke boils along the wall and clears in ribbons. The German bow jolts. A plate has taken the hit. The question is whether the angle turned physics into mercy or into ruin. The street holds its breath. The haze thins. The question hardens into numbers. Armor, angle, impact speed. The American gun is the 90mm M3. The round leaves the tube with high energy and a clean flight line. On paper, the figures look decisive against flat plate at medium distance. In streets and fields, the plate is not flat. The German bow is a sloped wedge that turns energy into glide. The Panther upper glacis is 80mm of rolled steel set back at 55 degrees. It was designed to make men doubt their own ballistics before they even squeeze the trigger. A loader knows the catalogue of shot, as well as he knows the weight of each shell in his hands. Armor-piercing, capped with explosive filler for general work. Solid shot for deep punch. Hyper-velocity tungsten core when supply allows. Each type carries a promise and a limit. Against the Panther face the limit rules the promise. Even with high muzzle velocity, conventional capped shot struggles to bite the upper glacis at point blank. The slope robs the round of normal impact. The nose skates. The cap shears. A bright scar blooms and nothing else. The truth is cold. The Panther upper bow remains a hard problem for the 90. Best practice shifts the aim. Hit the lower front when terrain exposes it. Take the turret cheeks when they yaw. Take the sides when the street turns or the German overcommits to a corner. The square hums with that truth. The Pershing gunner waits for geometry, not luck. The loader rides the rhythm. Up, in, locked. The commander reads the drift of smoke and the edge of the tramcar that hides the German hull. The driver inches the nose to change the sight picture by a hand's width. A street fight is a lecture in trigonometry written in dust and brick. Across the front, the Panther crew works a different rule set. Their long 75 reaches fast and hits with a flat, dry crack. The gun drills Shermans at a range that used to feel safe. It puts shots into walls with such speed that dust blossoms where eyes were looking a second before. That power made a legend. Sloped armor made a myth. In fields, the Panther hunts well. In towns, the weight of the nose and the fragile final drive turn quick moves into risk. The German crew knows this. They cover their weakness with discipline angles and the first shot. They trust the bow to shed glancing hits. They fear a side view more than any number in a manual. Elsdorf becomes a case study before the books are even written. A Pershing named Fireball holds a roadblock line in the glow of a burning building. The light makes a silhouette. A tiger waits in cover and fires at short range. The first hit knifes through the mantlet near the coke's opening and kills the gunner and the loader. The second wrecks the tube. Fireball is out of the fight in seconds. The lesson is direct and brutal. Heavy armor and a new gun do not cancel angles and surprise. Crew survival depends on sight lines, light discipline, and the first clean shot. Days later, the camera will find a different street and a different answer. Cologne. The cathedral towers over a crossroads choked with rubble. A Panther waits and kills a Sherman with one calm shot. An American Pershing named Eagle 7 swings into view from a side street. The commander speaks once. The gunner settles on a turret cheek that is just off the mantlet edge. The 90mm fires. Steel meets steel at the right place and the right angle. The German tank burns in full view of a signal corps lens. The duel will become a film strip that crews will pass hand to hand. It will also become a datum. The 90 can kill a Panther cleanly when the geometry is honest. Theoretical lines on chalkboards now carry notes in the margins. Do not waste a first round on the upper glacis unless distance is near zero and the plate is flawed. Favor turret cheeks when the Panther hunts across your front. Favor the lower front when terrain steps the hull. Favor the sides always. Against the mantlet, aim tight to an edge to avoid the thickest overlap. Work the street like a slide rule. Move for a percent here, a degree there until physics tips. The 90mm is a strong tool. The street decides if it is enough. Back in Elsdorf, the Zebra mission men log failures and fixes in small notebooks. Back at depots, crews chalk weak spots on mantlets and slap weld where cracks threaten. The tank is new. The war is not. A heavy gun helps, but doctrine training and urban tactics do the real lifting. The next engagement will test that claim in real time. Another corner, another breath held, another decision about where steel must land. The street holds its breath again. Elsdorf answers first. Night smoke, firelight on brick. A Pershing named Fireball holds a choke point while infantry clear rooms across the street. The silhouette is sharp against the glow. A German heavy tank waits in darkness with its barrel laid on the light. The first impact comes almost without sound. A flash at the mantlet seam near the coke's opening. The round drives through and takes the gunner. The loader falls a heartbeat later. A second shot ruins the tube. The new American tank sags crew shaken and stunned. Street geometry and light discipline beat steel. The lesson lands hard and stays. Do not pose your shape in firelight. Do not let the enemy choose the angle. Do not let the first clean sight picture belong to the other crew. Dawn brings a quieter accounting. Men walk the hull with chalk and tape. They trace the path of steel through steel. They measure edge overlaps at the mantlet. They note where welds held and where brackets bent. The 90mm would not matter when the first hit cut the eye and the hands from the turret. Surprise set the terms. The team writes that down in plain words. Surprise sets the terms. The phrase moves with the tank column to the next town. Cologne writes the counterpoint. March 6, 1945. Rubble piles lean toward the cathedral towers. A Panther waits in cover and watches a broad avenue. A Sherman tries to cross and dies under a single surgical shot. The German crew holds steady. Then a Pershing angles in from a side street. The commander gives one clipped order. The gunner does not chase the glacis. He takes the right cheek of the turret just off the thickest curve of the mantlet. The first 90mm round lands square. The Panther jolts. The second round follows before smoke hides the picture. The German tank burns in open view. The film camera keeps rolling. Crews see the strip later and do not speak for a long time. The image is cool and precise. It shows a thing that matters. The 90 can solve a Panther when the shot is honest and the aim is right. Between those two streets runs a line of quieter fights. Farm lanes near the Rhine, factory yards in the Ruhr, crossroads where hedges meet stone. Pershings catch Panthers while the German hull twists to clear a fence. Side armour opens like a door for a second. The 90 pushes through at medium range and ends the exchange with one or two shots. Other times the German crew sets an ambush on a narrow lane. The Pershing takes the first hit on the turret face or the lower front and keeps moving, then answers with a cheek shot as the enemy slews to reload. Sometimes the American misses his best window, and the fight becomes a trading of glances and sparks until smoke or a wall ends it. The record is not a brag. It is a stack of short reports with dates, distances, angles, and damage notes. It reads like a ledger. Each line asks the same question. Who shaped the shot? Training shows in the lines between those lines. Commanders who force offset approaches. Gunners who wait the extra half second for a cheek to open. Loaders who seat a second round before the sight picture settles again. Drivers who crab the hull to squeeze a few more degrees of effective slope out of their own plate. Infantry screens that blind German optics with smoke pots and dust. Field expedients with sandbags and track links that help once and then fail twice. The crews learn that ritual alone does not save you. Good ritual linked to specific geometry does. The Panther remains what it always was. A hunter that kills quickly in open ground and reaches far with a flat, angry flight. A machine that punishes careless approaches. A shape that bleeds energy off glancing hits. In towns and mills, the weight of the nose and the strain of the final drive make sudden pivots dangerous. In that world, the Pershing's steadier traverse and the blunt force of the 90 begin to count. Not as magic, as advantage when the commander makes the street do some work for him. Elsdorf returns once more as a whisper in every brief. Do not let the first picture belong to the other crew. Cologne returns as a second line under it. When the first picture is yours, make it the right one. Turret cheek just off the mantlet. Lower front when the ground steps the hull. Side whenever the lane breaks the enemy's guard. Hold the tube on line between shots. Trust the loader's rhythm. If the first round scars and skates, do not stare at the scar. shift a hand's width and fire again. By late March, the reports carry a change in tone. Crews no longer speak of the Panther as a wall. They speak of it as a problem with steps. Step 1. Deny the upper glacis by angle or smoke. Step 2. Force a yaw. Step 3. Hit the cheek or the side. If you must take the bow, take the lower plate and take it fast. If the enemy kills a friend on the open, do not chase the same line. Make a new line and a new picture. The 90 does its work best when the picture is clean. The streets decide. The crews decide how the streets will decide. A new sound changes how men breathe under armour. The 90mm report is heavy and low, and crews feel it in the ribs. After Cologne, a quiet confidence begins to ride with Pershing platoons. It is not bravado. It is the knowledge that a clean cheek shot at honest range will end the argument. Infantry hear that report and move a little faster across open cuts. Engineers time their dashes with the rhythm of reload and recoil. Forward observers mark how dust hangs after each round and use that veil to step line by line. Morale shifts in small, practical ways. Men who once counted the seconds to the first German shot now count the seconds to their own second round. Doctrine flexes to match the steel. Platoon leaders write brief orders around angles rather than streets. Offset approaches, smoke to deny the upper bow, bounding overwatch that forces the enemy hull to yaw. A Pershing takes the fixing role, shows a sliver, and draws the Panther barrel. A second Pershing slides a half block off axis and waits for the cheek to open. The 90 does not erase mistakes, but it rewards discipline that shapes geometry. Crews speak less of single tanks and more of pairs and thirds. The gun becomes a system only when the formation acts like a system. Training sharpens the edge. Gunnery tables add exercises that demand hold and re-engagement inside 2 breaths. Loaders build muscle memory for the heavier round and keep the guard clear with the same motion every time. Drivers practice crab steering to build a few more degrees of survival into the Pershing face. Commanders drill light control at dusk to avoid the bright silhouette that killed Fireball. Map sessions grow blunt. Here the lower front will show for 1 second. Here the right cheek will show for 2. Here the side will open if the German tries to climb the curb. The lessons are specific, repeatable, and hard. Maintenance closes the loop. Recovery crews walk new tanks with dye marks and chalk lines. Welders dress mantlet edges where shot traps can form. Unit armourers track recoil smoothness and striker wear to keep first-round ignition steady. Suspension teams watch for track shed when a driver throws weight too sharply in rubble. The Pershing proves tolerant of punishment, but it is not a miracle. It stays lethal because men treat it as a precision tool that must be kept tight in the middle of mud and brick. Across the line, the Panther remains dangerous. Open fields still favour its long, flat shot and hard bow. A hasty Pershing that breaks cover in a straight line pays the same penalty a Sherman paid. The new gun reduces the margin of fear, not the need for thought. Crews put that into words for new men. Never trade geometry for speed. Never trust a pretty angle to last. Never assume the first scar means a second will bite. If a first round glances, adjust by a hand's width and fire again. Psychology settles into both sides. American crews stop using the Panther as a legend and start using it as a list of steps. German crews begin to treat the new American tank as a peer threat that cannot be bullied by posture alone. Smoke appears faster. Hulls angle sooner. First shot discipline tightens on both sides. The contest becomes cleaner and colder because each side now expects the other to know the same truths about armour and angle. The lineage grows in parallel. The 90mm proves its value not only on the Pershing but across platforms that carry it or its kin. Tank destroyer crews with the same bore family work many of the same aiming rules against the same German shapes. Post-war engineers carry the data into new turrets, new stabilizers, and new range-finding habits. The gun teaches a simple lesson that endures. Power matters, placement matters more. Stabilization and sight speed decide who turns numbers into facts. By late spring, commanders notice a change in their own briefings. They no longer argue to keep Pershings out of tight places. They argue to place them where angles can be forced and held. A Pershing at a key elbow in a street plan turns that elbow into a trap for any enemy hull that tries to break it. The tank becomes an anchor for infantry blocks, a hinge for engineer pushes, and a threat that changes how German gunners search. The presence of the 90 heavy tube alters the city map before a round leaves the chamber. Legacy begins as a habit rather than a monument. Crews who survive right after action, notes without flourish. Aim points, angles, ranges, second shot timings. These quiet paragraphs move forward into manuals and classrooms. They seed a post-war design philosophy that treats the gun, the sight, the stabilizer, the loader's path, and the commander's view as one loop. They also bend the culture of crews toward the idea that every weapon is only as strong as the geometry you can force on the enemy in the first 3 seconds. The Panther does not vanish. It remains a hard, fast hunter when conditions are right. Its demise is not a single event. It is a steady erosion of advantage where Street's doctrine and the 90mm align. When those three align, the Panther loses its first certainty. When they do not, it remains a machine to fear. Crews hold both truths at once and live by them. A Street waits ahead that will test all of this again. The story is not a single blast. It is a ledger of choices. The 90mm gives a crew options. It does not write the orders for them. The gun brings energy and a clean line of threat. The Street, the driver, and the loader turn that energy into effect. When they do, a Panther can die in 2 precise strokes. When they do not, the Panther keeps its legend. Think of advantage as 3 parts. First, raw capability. The 90mm delivers energy in a package that changes what is possible at medium ranges and in the side arcs. Second, systems that exploit that capability. Doctrine-paired tanks, smoke and infantry screening, trained loaders and patient gunners. These make the gun a tool instead of a loud artifact. Third, the human minute. A commander who refuses to give a clean picture. A driver who cranes the hull a degree. A gunner who waits the half-beat for cheek or lower plate to open. The 3 alignments are rare. Where they meet, the Panther's first certainty cracks. The Pershing never erased the cost of carelessness. It did not render other crew members obsolete. It rewarded geometry and patience. It punished exposure and the bright silhouette. The machine does not forgive mistakes. It simply changes the set of mistakes that are fatal. A wrong move that a Sherman could not survive might be recoverable in a Pershing. A wrong move that a Pershing cannot survive is still final. That is a narrow mercy, but it is a gift that shifts plans and hearts. That shift shows up in small ways. Infantry move with less of that frozen hesitance when a Pershing anchors an alley. Engineers time their charges with knowledge of when a Pershing will have a second round. Platoon leaders write orders in degrees and seconds, not in brave lines. Those are practical changes. They compound. They do not read like a headline. They read like improved odds in a ledger that matters to men who will not get to the books after the fight. The German crews adapt too. They do what hunters do. They avoid the pretty picture and force the other man to show flank. They use smoke shot discipline and the weight of the Panther nose to make quick arcs. They avoid narrow lanes where a Pershing pair can trade yaw and cheek and finish. They concentrate fields where their long gun can reach clean. The contest remains mutual. Each lesson drills into the other side. Advantage slides back and forth like shadow on a map. Legacy is less dramatic than doctrine. It hides in manuals and in the stubborn pages of after-action notes. Aim point diagrams move into gunnery schools. Loader drills become standards. Stabilizer and sight speed questions for post-war designs get new urgency. Engineers sketch turrets that favor certain crew arcs because someone on a street in March wrote that a cheek shot ended a tank in 2. That is how hardware evolves through a ledger of small, fatal truths. The Pershing's 90mm becomes part of a wider grammar of armored warfare. It teaches that armor design and gunnery are an argument in geometry. It teaches that a heavier gun matters most when you can force angles that make it honest. It teaches that survivability arrives when crews treat their tank as a coordinated instrument sight loader, driver and commander in a tight loop. The machine is raw physics. The victory is technique made routine. Do not romanticize the result. No single tank or gun wrote a final line on the map. The Panther continued to dominate under favorable skies and open ground. The Pershing did not stop that. What changed quietly was the frequency with which a Panther could be forced into a picture it could not escape. That is a sober victory. It is not a story of divine metal. It is the slow accumulation of better options, better training, and a better sense of how to make a street lie for the enemy. The final image is simple. A squad moves under the low sun. A Pershing sits at an elbow. Infantry slip across the cut. Smoke hangs like a curtain. The gunner breathes with the sight. The loader keeps the second round at hand. The driver angles the hull 2 degrees. The Panther appears and shows a cheek. The gun goes off. The result is quick and clean. Men mark it down and move on. The ledger grows. The war does not end on that page. The next town will ask the same question. The next commander will make the same choice.